Call it a crisis meeting, call it a cultural review, call it standard practice, call it what you like. It was the meeting the West Coast Eagles players had to have. This week, it was revealed a posse of senior players met with coach Andrew McQualter, head of football John Worsfold, general manager of footy Gavin Bell, CEO Don Pike, and leadership consultant Harry Taylor prior to the clash with Essendon 2 weeks ago. It had a sugar hit as the Eagles ran the Bombers close at home. But it was followed by a 50-point defeat by Hawthorn at Marvel Stadium, with the Hawks 2 players down with concussion and going, let's be honest, at half rat power. Winning 2 of 28 quarters played so far this season is just not good enough. It might be dumbing down the complex metrics available to AFL clubs, but the Eagles are quite simply coughing up too many goals and not kicking enough themselves. Effort should be a non-negotiable at this level, and yes, they are a young group, but it's been found wanting at times. Start by winning a quarter against Melbourne on Saturday night at Optus Stadium. Hell, you never know what might happen against a Demons outfit that still has its vulnerabilities. A few kms down the Kwinana Freeway and it's line in the sand time, part 2 for a Fremantle side that most good judges believe has the ability to go deep in finals this season. A 3.5 quarter effort against Adelaide was the first step last round. But now it's about winning on the road against a St Kilda side coached by an angry Ross Lyon. The Dockers have lost their past 4 matches in Victoria, smashed by the Western Bulldogs in round 14 last season, stumbling from an unlosable position against Essendon in round 21, an opening round horror show against Geelong this season, and a recent defeat by Melbourne. If the Dockers are to be taken seriously as a finals contender, they must beat the under-siege Saints this weekend. Because if you can't win in Victoria, you can't challenge. Over to you, Freo. We are brought to you by Tab Touch. Got the touch? Download the Tab Touch app today. What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelponline.org.au. I am joined by the West Australians' Mitchell Woodcock and from Melbourne, Craig O'Donoghue, in the great city to cover Fremantle's game against St Kilda tomorrow night. COD, they trained at Marvel Stadium today. You didn't have access, but it's a bit of a rarity for them to actually get onto Marvel Stadium.
Yeah, it is. It's really rare for them. So it's fantastic they've had the opportunity today, because when you look at what they trained at in Victoria when they were here 2 weeks ago, they were out at Melbourne High School for their captain's run. They got a midweek session at the MCG that week, but that was the only time they got out there. So then it was out at a high school. And when you look at where they've been in the past, they've often gone to Port Melbourne, which is a VFL ground. They've been to Gosh's Paddock. They've been to Melbourne High. Last week we saw West Coast were out at Caulfield Grammar and Brisbane Lions were out at Port Melbourne. So to get access to Marvel Stadium is really significant for them, so that guys like Murphy Reid and Isaiah Dudley, who've never played there before, can just get an idea about what the Oval feels like, what the change rooms are like. The roof was open, whereas it'll be closed tomorrow night, so they didn't get the total atmosphere. But just getting out there and feeling a bit more comfortable is so important for their preparation.
Now, Luke Jackson-Flew is obviously playing. What's going to be the mix with him and Sean Darcy in the ruck?
So it's normally more 70-30 Sean Darcy and Luke Jackson. I think it might end up being a lot closer to 50-50. Justin Longmuir said the other day that with the way that Jackson was going before he got hurt, he was almost their best and most influential player at the time, and that was as a ruckman. So I think we can expect Sean Darcy to play forward a bit and Jackson to play more in the ruck. Darcy will still be the starting ruckman and have the key role as a ruckman, whereas Jackson will be the forward who goes into the ruck. But we're going to see more of Jackson doing ruck work than what we have when him and Darcy have played together in the past.
Great performance by Fremantle last week against Adelaide, but how important is it for them to back it up, particularly given their recent results in Victoria?
Yeah, the recent results in Victoria have been poor. If you look at excluding gather round when it's a neutral match, from the from the bye last year, they've been 1-6 when interstate. So you take it that Richmond game, which they won, and the only other victory was against Sydney by a point last year. So they need to make sure that they get back on the track of performing well interstate in general, and especially in Victoria, where they were poor against Geelong in the opening round of the season, and then they were poor against Melbourne recently as well. So they definitely need to play well over here and set up their season again, because it's a massive weekend when you look at all the other results, and the teams that are around them on the ladder are all playing each other also. So win this and they should be back in the 8.
Now, is it better to get good Ross or angry Ross? Because Ross Lyon has been angry this week.
I wouldn't want to ever get angry Ross. We've all seen angry Ross many times over the years. If you're a St Kilda player right now, you are well and truly on edge, and you do not want to upset your coach in any way. The AFL wouldn't want to upset him anymore at the moment either, after Alex Torru got a suspension, and he fired up about that also. So angry Ross will have them on edge. And what we've seen this year with all teams is the clubs that are under siege come out and play well the next week. We saw it with Melbourne against Fremantle. We saw it with Fremantle against Adelaide. We saw it with Port Adelaide against Hawthorn. We saw it with Brisbane last week as well. Like, the clubs that haven't had a good week the one before, they come out and are absolutely breathing fire. So St Kilda are the breathing fire team. Fremantle have to make sure they feel like their backs are against the wall and that they are breathing fire to make sure they can counter that.
Well, they should, because their record hasn't been great in Victoria. And if they're prepared for they're prepared for an ambush.
They have to be prepared for an ambush. Yeah, and I spoke to Jade Rawlings, the assistant coach, earlier. I said, are you prepared for this ambush? And he said, you know what a Ross Lyon team is going to bring. And you know what the history of teams throughout the entire AFL has been this year when they're under the pump. He said, you have to be ready for it, because if you're off, he said, you're going to get punched in the face. And that's exactly what they're ready for now. So they will come out, and it's just a massive, massive game for them. From a credibility standpoint, this is one where you're on Friday night footy. The entire nation is watching this one. If you can come out with the intensity that you displayed last week and do it again in Victoria on that big stage, then people start to talk about you credibly again.
Craig, just one from me. Looking at Fremantle's team, where they bring Jackson in, they're going to be really tall in attack, even if they take out Oscar McDonald. How do you see that mix working, especially with the likes of Isaiah Dudley and probably Narkle, who's likely to be the sub again? I think they've got that forward mix right, but this changes it up again, adding the two real ruckmen, I suppose.
Yeah, they've been tall all year, whether it's been Pat Voss playing the third tall role, or it was Liam Reedy in round one, which didn't really work, and then Oscar McDonald last week. And when Jackson does play, he always plays alongside Jai Amos and Josh Tracy as well. So their preference is to have 4 talls in that team, being 2 ruckmen, one of them being a ruck forward, and 2 genuine key position players inside 50 as well. So they like those 3 talls, and their smalls are going to love Jackson being inside 50, I think. When you look at what Dudley can do, when you look at what Murphy Reid can do, and then you've got Switkowski down there as well, and Michael Frederick, I think knowing that they're going to have that contest for the ball the entire time and bring it to ground, that's what they're going to want if they can't outmark St Kilda. So I think Jackson's energy and what he brings to that forward line will be different to what we've seen from Voss, and different from what we've seen from McDonald, and definitely different from what we've seen from Reedy. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the 3 of them work together. But I do like the way when Jackson goes forward, suddenly it's a bit of chaos there. You're not really sure what he's going to do. And he just roams around and creates a bit of havoc. So it'll be a fun element of the game to see.
Hey, Cod, thanks for jumping in. Really appreciate your time. Lovely curtains, by the way. It looks like you're about to go in one of those junior footy photos.
Yeah, it does. Well, there's offices directly behind me. I haven't got a view this time. Sorry. If I open the window up, all you'd see is another building really, really close to me at the moment. So I didn't want to have the outside of Victoria on the screen, because there's not a lot of outside Victoria to look at right now.
No worries, mate. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll talk to you on Tuesday.
Enjoy, fellas.
We'll preview that game with the others soon, but now to Mitchell Woodcock. Mitch.
Hello.
It's fresh from Andrew McQualter's press conference and Eagles training, and a bit more news this morning with Oscar Allan revealing on 94.5 FM this morning that he actually did in fact have that meeting with Sam Mitchell. It was a private dinner at his own home.
Yep.
And that he's ceased being on social media, and that he felt that everyone hated him, which made me kind of sad listening to that. No one hates you, Oscar.
No.
No, not at all. And if they do, they're ill-informed. But what did you take out of Andrew McQualter's and and his view on whether it's a crisis meeting, just a normal meeting, a culture review, whatever it was. What did Andrew McQualter have to say?
Yeah, he was very staunch today, I will say. So the first question, I asked the first question of the press conference and basically said to him, just what did you get out of that meeting? And I sort of realised last night when I was reading everything into this that he'd actually mentioned this meeting after the Essendon match where the senior players had got together. He just didn't mention that the footy department had, and that's his prerogative as well. And like he said, they're not shying away from this meeting. This is part of them. Essentially, what he's basically said is that a team in their position would be negligent if they're not having these types of meetings. And I'll go one step further, and I'll think that every team would be having these sorts of meetings, whether you're up the top of the ladder or you're down the bottom. You need to get your senior people in quite regularly. Obviously, when you're not performing as well, it becomes a bigger story and bigger news and probably more of a regular thing. But he basically not shut down the story, but almost tried to temper it as it wasn't a massive drama as it's probably made out to be. It's probably been a bit overplayed by all aspects of outside of noise. But it was basically a meeting called up by the hire department with not just the leadership group, but senior players.
Called up by John Worsfold, right?
Who's obviously the head of that football department. Yep. So they all got together basically in a room and tried to but basically try to get ideas going about what the players are seeing, what they're seeing, where the problems are, where the issues are. These are important conversations to have. And I give credit to West Coast for not shutting the story down as such, but just saying, yeah, look, we're having these conversations and we're not afraid to have them because we need to have them. I know that the on-field performance matters, don't get me wrong, but with the rebuild that they're in at the moment with Andrew McQualter, he has to get every bit of information he can to make this team better.
So there's a suggestion there's a disconnect between the upper echelons and the players.
No. From what I've been told, or from what Andrew McQualter was saying, and you read between the lines of what the Eagles are saying, is that no, there's no disconnect. Liam Duggan was on Triple M this morning and said something similar, that it was a great conversation, that they're seeing things on the field and off the field change and react. But there's no disconnect. I think it was just a way for them to actually connect. And maybe they hadn't been enough. I don't know. But you can't look at the past for that now. You've got to move forward with what they've got. And what they've got is a really good communication line that I think needs to be continued.
So it was Oscar Allan, Liam Duggan, the co-captains, Jake Waterman, Jeremy McGovern, Liam Baker and Jack Graham, who met with Andrew McQualter, John Worsfold, the head of football, General Manager of Footy Gavin Bell, CEO Don Pike and Leadership Consultant Harry Taylor.
Yep.
This was before the Essendon game.
Yes, so this was over 2 weeks ago.
They got a nice pop in the Essendon game. It was a good performance, but it fell away again.
Yeah, and against Hawthorn, obviously, wasn't a great performance. I was there. It was a really tough game to watch. You felt like Hawthorn never really put them away, but were never really challenged at the same time. Look, there's going to be a lot made out of what West Coast are doing. I feel like McQualter, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I get the feeling from watching it that the moves he's making now are a little more drastic because I think he's realised that there's certain things that even he didn't realise weren't working.
You mean on field?
On field.
So Oscar to defence, like a raft of young players into the midfield taking centre bounces.
Yeah, so he's moved Brady Hoff in there. Hoff revealed this week that it was a discussion he had with McQualter. I actually don't mind the move. I know he's one of their best defenders, but he's not going to change that. He can go back there. He's not going to lose that. Kelly's coming back into the side. Oscar's going to remain in defence this week by the looks of it. McQualter definitely hinted at that, which I think is great.
So, yeah, I'd prefer him forward, just to be honest. I know they're trying to run him into some form. I get it. And you've got some youth up the other end, Archer Reid, Jack Williams. But he's a forward. He's a very, very good forward. They're hard to find. I like him up the other end,
but
particularly this week.
But the problem they've got then is you've got Jake Waterman, who's their best forward still. So you've got to play him out of the goal square. He's got the best marking.
Best forward the last 2 years, but Oscar was that.
Yep, but I still think he's the best. I think he's one of the top 5 contested marks in the comp when he's up and going. Jake Waterman now, All-Australian. Archer Reid, outside of maybe needing a rest at some stage, just given that he's a young, big, tall, which we know take time, but he's showing a bit.
Jack Williams has been showing a bit since last year.
Yeah, and Jack Williams I thought was unlucky to miss out at the start of the season. They squeezed him out for Archer Reid. I think they realised Archer probably wasn't quite ready for the ruck part of being a forward ruck, so they brought Jack Williams back in, but they like what Archer does. And watching Archer live a lot, I think what's underrated by him is his leading patterns are quite...
They are good and
meticulous.
And it hits the packs.
Yeah, and he
likes
jumps
a bit of contact.
And then Job Shanahan's playing in the waffle as well, and I think that he's probably going to be one of the better contested marks in the AFL in about 3 years' time. I watch this kid go. So, and he can play either end of the ground. They're playing him as a forward at the moment because they've got a lot of defenders in the waffle.
You got Sandy Brock back there, Rhett Bazzo as well.
Harry Edwards.
Harry Edwards.
Harry Barnett's playing as a ruck, backman, forward. I don't know where Harry Barnett plays at the moment these days. He changes so much. Callum Jamison's been playing as a back for a few years
he was
now.
First game back in the waffle last week.
Yeah, so he's back now. So look, the issue they've got, West Coast, is they don't seem to trust Harry Edwards at all. So I know he got taken by
Pretty hard being a
King
key
in
defender in that team at the moment.
It's incredibly hard. So like we look at the first round and what King did to him, we were both there. It was a tough night. What Essendon and Peter Wright did to him was a really tough night as well. And I'm curious about this is it the chicken or the egg in this case? Is it the midfield not putting enough pressure on the ball carrier, or is it Harry Edwards not doing enough body work, or is it's probably a bit of both?
Clearly it's a bit of both.
But they've dropped him twice, so they don't have the confidence in him. Jeremy McGovern, for all his amazingness as a 5-time All-Australian, is not a lockdown defender.
He's not.
That's evident. So you need someone
intercept defender.
But you need someone to do it, and unfortunately they just don't have anybody. Like back in the 2018-19, you had Will Schofield and the likes being able to do that, and now they just don't have that reliable shutdown defender that may not get 10, 15 disposals a game or even mark it, but they just don't get beaten by 6 goals to nothing. You know what I mean? Like, it's a really tough situation they're in.
What did you make of Oscar Allen's comments this morning?
Broke my heart a little bit. If you know Oscar, and I don't pretend to know him personally.
It's clearly been a really tough period for him. And he explained that's why he took the Easter break off.
Yeah, and
couldn't get to the game.
And I respect that too, because I think it's mental health is a massive thing in today's society, let alone in the game of football. I don't pretend to know Oscar personally, but I do know Oscar to a certain extent through a lot of media opportunities and a lot of chatting and a lot of one-on-ones. And what I will say is he does love that club, regardless if he leaves or not. And obviously at the moment, everyone's sort of hedging their bets on him departing. But we grew up a West Coast fan. He was drafted there. He's the captain there. He's basically came in when they won the flag. His first year was 2018. He was going to be the emergency, we forget.
Yeah, he was.
He was the
first emergency.
He was coming in for Jeremy McGovern that morning up until right before the game started. So there's a lot there for Oscar to feel and the emotions. And I can understand him even being nervous about running out in front of 50,000 on a Friday night against Essendon and wondering if he's going to be jeered, because we're seeing it a lot in football. Look at Ben Mackay at Essendon.
Nah, they won't do that this week.
But I can understand the fear for him when that Essendon game at the height of that, and I can understand why he took the time off. And I think if it makes him a better person and a better player, which I'm sure it will, for admitting those sort of things, then I think it's great. But it just broke my heart a little bit, because I just think to myself, I hope he's okay. For football is everything. And the one thing we love about football is emotion. It brings out the best in people, but it can sometimes bring out the worst. And you just hope that he doesn't feel like that worst is coming for him from people.
So we'll get onto that game when we preview the others in a moment. Couple of issues this week. Let's start with Paul Curtis. 3 weeks. We both, on Tuesday, I mentioned on the podcast, I was comfortable with the suspension, unlike a lot of other people.
Yep.
But 3 weeks seems grossly overstated. So Laura Kane this week has basically intimated that there will be a review to the matrix. And I think we all want that. The AFL Players Association is big on it. We want the matrix to change so that there's room, there's for the nuance, for the grey area. It's not black and white. It's not a 3 or a 0. It's something in between. Clearly, I think he pinned his arms, the head made contact, he's concussed. I think it's a punishment, but 3 is excessive. So 1 for me, or at most 2.
Yeah, I think the matrix just has to be torn up and redone.
But weren't we talking about this last year? Why didn't this not happen over last summer?
It's ridiculous. And it's why I'm really frustrated with the AFL's leadership at the moment, because I feel like they're reactive. They've been reactive for a while, and now they're really reactive. They're not proactive. When you change things like, rules about concussion and stuff, and look, I'm all for that. We need to try and limit injuries in AFL, like the sliding of into the legs and stuff like that. Those rules are great because they're changing things, but you can't then not change other aspects of the game to compensate for them. So what I mean by that is, like you said, Curtis was either nothing or 3.
Yeah.
Well, it probably couldn't have been nothing. And I can understand that. And I can understand
it had to be a suspension.
But 3 weeks for that is just excessive and ridiculous. And I'll argue that he was in all-Australian form.
I would say he was in all Australia.
And finishing in the top 5 of their fairest and best.
Equal goal kicker to Nick Larkey this year so far. So he's been very good.
And the other thing is we talk about small forwards needing to tackle as well as kick goals, and then you discourage. I don't know. It's just it's a very fine line that he tread, and for such a big punishment, it just seems farcical for me.
Which leads us into Ross Lyon's outburst after the 4-week ban on Alex Turu, an early draft pick, which became 6 weeks with the bye. Lyon said, I'm really frustrated. It's a broken system. And then he went on to talk about how the tribunal doesn't take into consideration that it's 6 weeks. Noah Bolter got 4 weeks stand down for an assault off the field with respect. Spoke about mental health of the kid. 6 weeks is a long – for what the incident was, he deserved punishment again, but that's 4, now becomes 6.
Yeah.
Either side of the bye, it's just not right.
I'm not comfortable with one aspect of what Ross said, and that's comparing Noah Bolter to what happened on the field. Noah Bolter, it's a different system. It's a different aspect of it. This one thing happened on the footy field, one happened the outside of that. I understand the logic and the frustration. I'm all for Bolter should have been suspended until the punishment at the court was handed down. And I know we can debate all those circumstances all we like, but that's my opinion on that. I just don't like the two being brought together. I think they're a bit separate.
I don't mind it, actually. I think it's a good value point. I think we need to – you can weigh one against the other because I thought Bolter was unders, and you can compare it. Don't you think? I mean, so Connor Nash, 4 weeks.
Again, though, that's an on-field football thing. One of them was a thing that happened in general public, I will say. So,
but bringing the game into disrepute is a law, is one of the AFL laws.
But Alex Taru was a football act. I saw the act. I understand it's suspendable. 4 weeks is a lot for what he. I understand the young man got knocked out again. I understand that. Geez, 4 weeks is a heavy penalty for that. It was front-on contact. They were both moving at a fair pace. There's not a lot of vision because it's a VFL game. I understand where Ross is coming from. I also think Ross is having a week of trying to deflect from his team's performances because, he had an argument the other day with a journalist in a post-match press conference.
Which we didn't like.
Well, not an argument, but he put back on the question on them. And that's not what a press conference is for. The press conference is for them to answer the questions, not the other way around. Us as journos have an ability to have our opinion, and that's a different forum. But I don't like when Ross does this. And coaches are getting pretty good at doing this. We saw Damien Hardwick with the Jacinta Allen stuff when Gold Coast were losing. He takes the attention away from the team and puts it on himself and his comments that he probably doesn't lose any sleep over, whereas he probably does.
I'd question whether that was a deflection. I just think that was a brash miscalculation by Damien Hardwick in that instance. So.
I just don't like, though, Ross deflected. Everyone's talking about Ross and the fact that he got into a tit for tat with a journalist, and now they're talking about him talking about the tribunal system. Ross, your team's given up 100 points the last 3 weeks. That's not very Ross Lyon-like. I'd be concentrating on Fremantle.
Now, we will talk about Cane Corns a bit later, Mitchell, because we do have some mail on it, so we will do that. But in the interim, let's pick some winners. But first, let's go to the Tab Touches, David Short.
Shorty's Tips.
G'day, Shorty. How are you?
Really well, thanks, Quarters.
And Ben King was amongst the goals again. He's your hot for the week.
Yeah, he sure is. He's on fire. 5 goals last week. He's now the leading goal scorer in the league. 23 goals for the season, into $4 to win the Coleman medal.
Biggest Q clash ever this week too.
Should be a
very big game to finish the round. And who's your cooler?
North Melbourne, the Kangas. Well, they've lost their last 5 games in a row, but now just with a little bit of salt into the wounds, their gun forward, Paul Curtis, is out for 3 weeks. Very, very dubious on that one. And he's had a great year. He's kicked as many goals as their spearhead, Nick Larkey, 18. So they're going to miss him big time.
I reckon he's almost in All-Australian form at the moment and should be missing 1. But not 3, in my opinion. Who's your hot tip for the week?
I'm going to roll up the Western Bulldogs, Melbourne, GWS and Hawthorn. That's paying $3.15. Give them strength.
Like it. And on the drift.
Yeah, the Blues are a bit easy to back this week, which is surprising. They're in a pretty good vein of form, but they're $2.50 out to $2.60 for their clash with Adelaide this weekend.
Got to be about the venue, surely.
Maybe, yeah. It's hard to work out, but the punters and bookmakers do some funny things at times. I was a little surprised with that one.
Oh, well, nice to watch at the moment, the Blue Boys. Player to watch this round.
And this is important in the prior on the drift because Ben Keys, he's been a really big player against Carlton in recent times. He's kicked 3 goals in 3 of his last 4 games against the Blues. He's paying $5.80 to kick 3 goals again this game and $15 to kick the first goal of the match, which he's been prolific at in recent seasons.
Certainly has. Thanks, Shorttey. Talk to you next week.
Cheers, Quarters.
All right, Mitch. Let's start with tonight's game at Marvel Stadium, 5:30 p.m. Essendon paying $1.38, North Melbourne $3.05. No Paul Curtis, we have mentioned, who's in all Australian form, we think. Wardlaw is also out of that team. That's a significant out. I look at this team. Essendon has won its last 11 matches against North Melbourne, dating back to round 18 to 2017 by an average winning margin of 29 points. Well, North hasn't won a lot of footy games, so that's nothing surprising. The Kangaroos are the only team in the competition to trail at quarter time in every match this season, so not getting off to a good start. It's just the 7th time a team has gone 0-7 in their first 7 opening quarters. I can throw a heap of stats out. Bottom line, I think this is an important game for Melbourne to win, even more so than North Melbourne, I think, at the moment. I want a competitive effort from North Melbourne. Peter Wright, probably v. Charlie Comben. Sassis in for Essendon. Shields out. I'm picking Essendon in this game. You?
Yeah, no, I'm picking Essendon. The only way I can see North winning is if Tristan Cherry has a really big game against Goldstein and runs him around a little bit.
So, first game back last week, Goldstein, the veteran, 36 years
Pretty
of
good.
age. So, but 2 weeks, he's got to back it up now.
And a guy who was nearly an All-Australian last year in Tristan Cherry. He's had a poor couple of weeks for his standards. Yeah, geez, not really a blockbuster on a Thursday night, is it? But
no,
an interesting game regardless because
we might
of
have some mail on that as
but
well.
Yeah,
so.
just a couple of. We'll point to that later. But yeah, I'll still be watching it because it's the job and I love footy. But yeah, you can't see if Essendon lose this. I don't think finals are on their radar. But if they lose this, they're definitely not on their radar.
Now, some very important game here on Friday night at Marvel Stadium, 5:40 p.m. Western Standard Time. St Kilda, $2.16. Fremantle, $1.70. Before we get into it, let me throw some champion data stats at you. St Kilda's won 5 of its last 8 matches against Fremantle at Marvel by an average margin of 36 points. Has played 5 games, Mitch, against top 8 opponents this season, the most in the competition. So St Kilda's draw has been really, really hard. Callum Wilkie, by the way, who we're all a big wrap off in this podcast, is the only player in the competition with 100% game time this season.
Wow,
there you go. Couple on the Dockers. The Dockers were the least experienced team in the AFL last round, with an average of 75.5 games played from their team. 46.7% of Fremantle's kicks have been long this season, the second highest rate in the league. Hugh Boxall makes his debut, a West Australian boy, 188 centimetres, has averaged 23.8 possessions in the VFL the past 3 weeks. I want to single out Wanganeen Malera for St Kilda, who I think right now is a lock on a halfback flank in the All-Australian team. Although he's going to spend more time in the midfield as he did last weekend. So look at that. Smashed by Brisbane in the clearances last week. So look at some adjustment there, and they do play better under the Marvel Stadium lid. Clearly a big in for Fremantle with Luke Jackson, who has recorded a career-high hit-out to advantage rate of 35.6% this season, the highest rate of any ruckman in the AFL when he plays. So that's significant. I think Freo wins this game. Love the way they're defending behind the ball. I think their forward 50 pressure was right on last week, and you can see their ball movement and their all-team defence, given that I think Adelaide was restricted to a ridiculously low inside 50 count last week. I'm going to pick the Dockers, but given their Victorian record and their form on the road in recent times, I'm not overwhelmed with confidence. You?
I'm tipping St Kilda.
Mm-hmm.
I know that sounds ridiculous. I have no trust in Fremantle at the moment when it comes to playing away from home. I thought the disaster against Melbourne was terrible. I thought the game against Adelaide last week, they were really good for probably 2.5 quarters, and then they sort of took their foot off the gas a little bit again. And this is my big issue with Fremantle right now. That game, they were up by 30 points at one stage, I believe, and I felt like they really could have put Adelaide away. by a good 10 goals, really. I thought Adelaide were shocking.
Well, the 3-goal margin was flattering for Adelaide. And their coach, Matthew Nicks, has conceded that this week.
But I don't understand why Fremantle don't have this ruthless edge where they do that. Like, you could have made a statement. I thought they should have made a statement against Melbourne, who were on their knees at the time, and they've let Melbourne back into the season, which is a dangerous thing to do when you're a team that is clearly right now not playing top 4 football. I know they did for probably a half last week, but geez, they didn't after that. And then against Adelaide, you got a chance to put away a team that's probably going to compete for that 4th spot against you, and you let them back in. I don't get it. I want Fremantle, from a journalistic point, to succeed, because the stories that come with it are fantastic. And I know you'd appreciate this too, Quarters. Like the stories that would come with this, and the finals in Perth, we want that all back. I don't understand where they're coming from, though, at the moment, Fremantle. I know they're a young side, but get a bit of anger about you. I was so disappointed against Melbourne, and I forgot to mention this, that nobody went up to Viney when he was tagging Sarong and put a bit of heat on him. And at the weekend, like, you had to put some heat on Adelaide a bit more. Like, in that second half, they just fell away. And I was really disappointed. And I want to see them come out this weekend. Ross Lyon will be so prepared for this match. Like we've said with Craig, that there is a chance there's an ambush. I want to see them come out in the first 5 minutes. I want to see them lay some crunching tackles. I want to see Josh Tracy get a pack. I want to see Alex Pearce.
Well, Josh was pretty good last week.
He was, but I want to see Alex Pearce put a big spoil on. I don't want to see...
And he was pretty good last week.
I don't want to see someone...
You want to see it on the road. You want to see this replicated.
I don't want to see someone go to Caleb Sarong and push him around and not one docker go near it. If that happens, I want to see 3 dockers walk up and say, leave him alone.
A Windhager.
Like, I just want to see something from them. I want some relentless football. And then I'll believe.
So I don't want to make this stats heavy, but Champion Data's Premiership Standard looks at 32 measures which Premiership teams often rank in the top 6. There are 5 stats where all the last 10 premiers have been in the top 6. Fremantle ranked top 6 for 4 of those 5s over the last 6 weeks. So we're talking points against, point from turnover against, Oppo points from forward half, D50 to inside 50, and inside 50 differential. The one stat they don't rank top 6 in is defensive 50 to inside 50%, but they do rank number 1 for half back to inside 50. So, I mean, there's a lot to like about where they're going, but I agree with you. I'm concerned about their ability to replicate it on the road. We're about to find out. And you've got to do it without any lead-up anger.
Yeah.
You got to do it. You got to be able to be on from the opening bounce. Let's not see a insipid first quarter. Let's and there's no excuses. They've said that. They've trained on Marvel Stadium. Let's see it happen.
I want to see the Fremantle that walk out and go, we're better than this side. We know we're better than this side. Let's go and be better than this side. I don't want to see them walk out and be trepidatious. I want to see them go out and go hunting for wins. Not just thinking that it's going to happen sometimes. And I feel like they just don't have that relentlessness, and I want to see it.
Yeah, well, let's see if they're a team that's chasing a spot in the 8 or a fair dinkum sort of top 6 contender. A Saturday, 11:20am at Mars Stadium in Ballarat. It'll be a cold old day there, I can tell you. Western Bulldogs $1.36, Port Adelaide $3.15. The Dogs have won 8 of their last 10 matches at Mars Stadium by an average of 33 points. The Bulldogs, Mitch, are the most direct team in the competition with 91.7% of all kicks directed forward. Port Adelaide, on the other hand, is minus 64 in contested possessions over the last 2 weeks, but has managed to win both games. The worst ever contested possession differential by any team over 2 weeks where the team has won both games. Since round 4, they've generated a score from 37.5% of their set and bounce clearances, which is ranked second in the competition. Really good from their centre bouncers. They also have one of the big flat premiership barometers, Mitch, in recent times has been post-clearance contested possession. They've lost that by 11.1 per game, ranked last. So a lot of the metrics, they're not measuring up, yet they're still, managing to win games of footy. So, I mean, we look at Zach Butters, he's crucial. I think Sam Pepper's having a good season. Connor Rozee is as well, particularly after being shifted to half back. But he has conceded, the Power have conceded 48 points from Connor Rozee's turnovers, the third most in the AFL. So that's a really, that's a significant stat. Horn Francis, which Horn Francis? Well, if I'm the Western Bulldogs, I'm just going to get under his skin early because we know it can be a bit of a disruptor. The Dogs really liked their performance last week. Smoking Joe Frazier. Going forward, Rory Lobb going forward, leaving sort of Jess Buslinger and O'Donnell, really the two key backs. O'Donnell did a pretty good job on Hogan, so perhaps he gets Georgiades this week. I'm going to tip the Dogs. I think Ballarat's compelling. I think it's a tough game for Port to travel to.
It's a home and away from home for the Bulldogs, which is a terrible cliche, but it is what it is.
Attendance is down too. They're redeveloping the arena, so there'll be a smaller crowd.
But look, I think the Bulldogs will get it done. Bontempelli's come back like a house on fire, and he's only going to get better. I like the way Bevo's coaching right now. He's probably coaching the best he's ever coached outside of that 2016 final series.
Interestingly, Mitch, there's no tenure beyond this season at the moment. So his contract runs out at the end of the year. So it's almost as if there's no pressure on.
No, just coach. And so I think they're playing really good football at the moment. I like the Dogs. I like the way they go about it. And I admire them from afar right now, given the circumstances around Ugle-Hagan and then losing Darcy, not having Bont for most of the season. Trelaw hasn't played at all this year. They're doing a lot with very little in terms of the personnel they've got out there, and they're only going to get better if they keep moving up, and so is Bontempelli.
And I love Liberatore's maybe the most underrated player in the competition. Oh. He gets it started for them. We know Bontempelli's their best player. He's just rhythm personified. He just stepped back into that after his long injury and as if he hadn't missed a beat. But I think Libba gets it all going. He's really crucial. And to be honest, if I'm looking at stopping the Dogs, I'm looking at targeting him ahead of Bontempelli.
Oh, 100%. But I'm with the Bulldogs right now. But Port Adelaide playing some really good footy as well. Zach Butters is a top 5 midfielder in the competition. He's changed them since he's come back into
so many
that
Victorian
side.
clubs into him too.
Well, mate, forget every Victorian club. Every club should
yeah.
be interested in him. I don't care who you are. If he had 2 glances at you, you'd be asking him to come and sit at the table and have a chat.
Who you picking?
Dogs.
Okay. Adelaide Oval, Saturday, 2:15 p.m. The Crows, $1.52. Carlton, little slight drifters, as Shorttey told us, out to $2.60. Really, really interesting game, this one, given what Adelaide are coming off their performance on the road and given Carlton's resurgence. I'm sort of starting to put one foot on the Carlton bandwagon again. I liked even though they were losing early, they weren't coughing up big scores. I'm going to throw some more stats at you. I'm going to call them the number ones, Mitch. They have led at halftime in all 7 matches this season, ranked number 1. In the last 4 rounds, Carlton's won the contested possessions by 23 per game, ranked number 1. They've led on the scoreboard in 70% of games, the highest rate in the league. Outscored Oppo by a total of 101 points in the time-on period of quarters, ranked number 1. Involved in 44.9 forward half stoppages per game, ranked number 1. And I think that's the number 1. So there's a few more.
You know what the number 1, though, that's going to count the most? The one who wears it for him is not going to be playing, Jack Silvani.
Yes.
With that broken hand. So that's why the Crows will win. The forward line is dangerous. I know they're probably going to get Fogarty back, I think. I don't know. It's a 50-50. Thilthorpe with that finger. But he's been their informed defender alongside Wiedering.
So what
Without
do you do
him,
with Walker
they're going to
and
struggle.
What do you do with Walker and Thilthorpe then? So you'd think Wiedering, the bigger body, goes to Thilthorpe?
Yeah, you would.
So who goes to Walker now?
Well, that's what I mean. There is no Silvani. You had to have him playing. It's a massive blow. He's their most important player at the moment, I'll argue. I know Walsh is playing great footy. I know they've got a dual Brownlow medalist. I know they've got Wiedering, they've got Mackay, they've got Curnow, they've got Hewitt. They should be premiership contenders, shouldn't they? But they're not. And I think Adelaide will bounce back at the Adelaide Oval. But without him, I just think it's too painful.
So I looked at it and you think, okay, so 3 areas in which you're going to contend, right? Forward 50 pressure. They're ranked number 2 in that at the moment, behind Hawthorn, who are number 1. Winning contested possession and winning stoppage. They're excelling at all 3. That's why I reckon they're a chance in this game, as well as Curnow and Mackay if they can repeat last week's effort. The key, I think, to Adelaide is transition from halfback. They play that game. So if you can look at their transition game, right, but also the uncontested marks. If they can sort of minimise those, I think Carlton go, I'm going to pick Adelaide only because they're at home at the Adelaide Oval.
It's a massive factor, but for me, Silvani's the big one.
Yep.
Massive news just as we get into the big game on Saturday
I saw your
night.
eyebrows raised there during that.
Clayton Oliver is not playing against West Coast. He's not feeling well, so the Demons have ruled him out. That's reports coming from Melbourne right now. So no Clayton Oliver for Melbourne against West Coast.
It just starts tipping it a little bit. The scales are just teetering a little bit back.
Just got to wonder, don't you, a little bit now. This is interesting. I know we're going to get into that game in a minute, but just breaking news, no Clayton Oliver.
Food for thought. I'm not changing my tip. We'll hear what it is in a moment. Saturday, 5:30 p.m. Unfortunately, going head-to-head with the West Coast Melbourne game at the MCG. Collingwood $1.58, Geelong $2.38. Let's call it the Jack Crisp game. This is his 245th consecutive match. Unbelievable. Passes the late, great Jim Steins. Now, I'll just read some facts out for you here. I've got a lot of facts today.
You
Mitch.
are very facty. This is amazing.
All over it today.
The numbers, man.
Steins' 244 game streak took 10 years and 268 days to accumulate. Crisp's 244 game streak took 10 years and 273 games to accumulate. Not finished yet. This is courtesy of the AFL, by the way. The crisp streak has involved 1,227 other players in total, 135 in teammates. It's included players spanning from those born in 1975 to 2006. Crisp was born in October 1993. Steins was 149 games into his 244-game streak when he was born. There you go.
Oh, wait. Congratulations to Jack Crisp. And this is a game I'm a little bit disappointed we're not going to watch it live because we're at the West Coast Melbourne game. So we might have to get your lovely wife to put a pot of coffee on and we'll go sit in your lounge room and watch the replay on 7+. But, geez, it's going to be a ripping game.
Well, Geelong, Collingwood in great form, top of the ladder for a reason. Geelong, disappointing loss to Carlton. Are they going to lose 2 in a row? Well, they have in recent years, but I like a lot about Geelong. For me, I look at the Pies and I look at just tackling pressure.
Yeah.
You can't really get into a keepings off game with them or a kick mark game. You've got to take them on. It's a real contest when you play Collingwood.
They shut you down so well.
So that's what you don't get any time to relax, do you? And you look at the midfields here. So you got the speed of Holmes and Smith against the guile of Sidebottom and Pendlebury, and you throw Nick Dacos into the mix there. So it's fascinating midfield matchup. What do you do with Dacos? You can't. If you've got a specialist tagger, you can go with him. We've seen it work in the past. I think Geelong do, but so you've got to try and it's just got to be pressure on every kick. So maybe Atkins goes to him because he's been pretty good in that role in the past. He's had a good season.
Well, he's the best tackler in the competition right now, really. So you wonder if he just goes to him and lays a couple of crunching tackles and says, Nick, every time you get the ball, this is what you're going to be feeling. And that'll discourage you pretty quick, I reckon, from going near the footy. Maybe not Nick Dacos, but for me, I wouldn't go near it for the rest of the day.
Interesting matchup of the forward lines. I look at Geelong, and you've got Close Stengel, those high forwards who just do so much damage between the arcs and get it pumping inside 50. And of course, Jeremy Cameron, Patrick Dangerfield's been reborn down there largely as a forward this year. Moves into the midfield if there's a break class emergency. But I look at the Collingwood forward line. And you look. The interesting thing is they're small forwards, Hill, Elliott, etc. They're small, but they play really well aerially. And you look at their tall forwards, Membry, Myercheck, they play well at ground level. So they're a really dangerous attack. I think McStay's a big out for them this week. I think that will just imbalance their forward line.
So Mason Cox will likely come in, you think?
Yeah.
I wonder if too, though, there's an 8-day break for Collingwood and there's only a 6-day break for Geelong. So I wonder how much that'll impact as well. I'm going to go the Pies.
I'm going the Pies, but I'm just can't wait to watch this game. It's going to tell us a lot. It'll tell us a lot and maybe not much. You know what I mean? Because we know they're both going to be probably top 4.
I think this is almost a prelim final preview if we get a bit lucky.
Saturday at the same time,
Here we go.
5:35 p.m. Optus Stadium, West Coast $2.90, Melbourne $1.41, $2.90 West Coast.
Good odds compared to last week. It was about $13.
Good odds compared to what they've been. Hang on, Mitch. That's our amateur attempt at breaking news, but we actually do have some major breaking news, and you're going to be really excited because I know you are his number one fan. So I'm going to let you take it away from here. Who have the Eagles picked in their squad for Saturday night's game?
If you didn't think they could win, you've got to believe now, Quarters. You've got to believe.
Cue the puns. Here we go.
Allan has been named the top draftee from West Coast from last year. Pick number 16. A Peel Thunder premiership player already at only 18 years of age. Had a near faultless preseason, was playing in all their preseason games. Would have made his debut, I think, in round 1. Unfortunately got illness leading into that and has had another separate illness as well and missed a waffle game. Played his last 2 waffle games. I think they just wanted to get a bit of consistent footy in him. But Bo Allen will make his debut. Interestingly,
What can we expect from him?
well, we can expect a big-bodied player who's ready to go. I think he's going to play down back.
Will
So
he be playing on someone, or has he got the ability to be a run with?
He's a both. He really
So
is
he
a
could
great
be a
defender.
bow constrictor.
He could be a Boken. There we go. Oh, I love it. He's the Allan key to victory.
Yeah, but that could be Oscar. That could be Oscar.
That could be Oscar too, though. But look, no, he's a great player. He's a raking left foot, uses the ball well. He's one of those players, and it's a high praise from me, but you'll understand what I mean. He reminds me of when he's in traffic like Scott Pendlebury. He's not super quick.
He's a big call.
But he has
played
that.
a game
But he
yet.
knows where he knows where he's going. He knows what's around him very much. He's got a sixth sense.
No pressure, Bo.
Yeah, I know. Love you, Bo.
Haven't even stepped onto an AF. Give the kid a chance, Mitch.
Bo, I'm excited. Bo Allen, he was the 3rd player from last year's draft crop
Yeah,
for
it's
West Coast.
fantastic news for him.
Just behind Hamish Davis and Tom Gross, the 5th debutant this year with also Archer Reid and Sandy Brock. But it's great news for him, and it'll give them a bit of a pep in their step. And I reckon the fans will get really, really loud when he
Debuting
hits
at
that.
home too.
Yeah, I reckon he'll get that first touch in front of 50,000 at Optus on Saturday night. The crowd will roar. It'll just add to the theatre of what's going to be a big chance for a win.
Interesting with Harley Reid, 66 free kicks over his first 27 games, the most by any player over their first 27 games. I'm sure you won't be surprised. Don't want to pick on Harley because last week we saw bad Harley, and good Harley is very good.
Well, 3 disposals to half time, finished the game with 19 and 2 goals. So that was 16 and 2 goals after half time. And we saw what he did to Melbourne last year, where he kicked a couple goals from 20 odd disposals, and that blistering run to get rid of Oliver and Petrarca and kick that goal of the year at the time too. Don't forget. So yeah, this is a winnable game for West Coast. I know every game is a winnable game in their eyes, but just there's something about this game for me that. I don't know whether it's I don't trust Melbourne, even though they've won.
Where
their
do
past
Melbourne's
2.
goals come from?
Well,
And where do West Coast goals come from?
Well, for Melbourne, it has to be Harrison Petty, who has done okay in the past few weeks, and then Pickett, we saw what he did to Fremantle, and he does like playing at Optus Stadium.
Jake Waterman, obviously, for West Coast.
Yeah.
You're going to need some midfield goals.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting. That's where someone like Petrarca. So I know the West Coast don't traditionally like to tag. I wouldn't mind seeing a Jack Hutchinson not run with Petrarca and just be a bit more accountable for him.
He's the man, Jack Hutchinson. Isn't
He's
he?
playing some really good football at the moment. I really like the way he's going about it. I want to see Tom. I know teams will be out soon. I want to see Tom Gross back in the side. I know a lot of West Coast fans do. I agree with the move they're making on Bo Allen. Give him some time to build.
It's the
some
week for Tim
confidence.
Kelly.
Tim Kelly will come back from that toe injury.
But it's a week for him, isn't it?
Yeah.
They need that outside polish.
I have a theory on where they should play Tim Kelly at the moment, actually. West Coast have been pushing up a high half forward into the stoppage. I want to see Tim Kelly start as that high half forward and push up into the stoppage. I want to see their starting bounce be whichever ruckman it is up against Max Gorn, which we can talk about, and that's a tough challenge in itself. I want to see Harley Reid. I want to see Jack Hutchinson. I want to see Tom Gross. That's the midfield I want to see starting on Saturday night. And then I want to see Tim Kelly as that high half forward. Once the ball's bounced, he pushes up. He's that extra number. If they have to leave a Melbourne defender free, so be it. Jake Waterman is taking contested marks just amazingly in the last 18 months. So back him to do it. Back Reid, back Williams, and then back your Crummers to get down there. But push Kelly up, try and even it up at the clearances and get the ball going your way.
So how do you combat Gorn?
You got to read his taps.
Well, you
and
neutralise him. You've got to try and neutralise.
Well,
so he's going to have an influence, but how big an influence? Like I think if you saw Hawthorn last week, Lloyd Meek, for example, 59 hit outs. I think Lloyd had too big an influence, even though Matt Flynn was okay.
Yeah.
I think you need to erode that. Otherwise, they're just winning.
They've done it before, West Coast. They did it on Adam Simpson in 2018. They didn't have Nick Nat-Nui in that year, that final series, and they had Vardy and Scott Lysett. And what did they do to Gorn and Brodie Grundy in that prelim in the grand final? They just beat him up. They just jumped into him all day. They made sure he didn't have his way with it.
Different side now.
But
though.
they've done it before, quarters. If you're Matt Flynn, I'm grabbing him by the ears. I'm bringing him in close and I'm saying, get him. Don't have to, I'm not saying hurt him. I'm just saying get him. Make his day a living hell. Because if he has it all his own way, the game's going to be
Well,
gone.
they beat him in round 8 last year. Got a good record in round 8 too, the Eagles. You look at the mids, so Hoff, Hewitt, Reid, Graham, Duggan, maybe Baker in there, Hutchinson. Now we now know Oliver's out, Viney, Petrarca, Langford, Windsor. Question, Hoff we expect to stay in the midfield. Who goes to Cozzy Pickett?
Yes, so Hoff will stay in the midfield. Andrew McQualter said that they hope
So
that
who goes to Cozzy Pickett?
Tom Cole
Yeah.
has to be the option right now.
My
Again,
first-
teams are going to come out. the other one you could go with, and it's real left field, and I know he's not defensively minded as such, but Liam Baker's got the pace to keep up with a Cozzy Pickett, and I wonder if you could make Cozzy.
You've got to have the pace.
The danger is that he's going back to goal. He's going to be dangerous. Can you make Pickett accountable the other way? Is my question. If you just said every time we've got the ball in hand out of defence, we're going to go through Baker, and we want Pickett to make sure he's paying attention.
Well, Baker can make him accountable the other way.
Can you do that? That's my question. Because sometimes you just got to concede that you're not going to beat a guy, and you've got to try and find a way to beat the team. And I wonder if this is the case for West Coast this weekend. If maybe that's something they can do. I don't know. I think the hard part is you want Hoff down in defence because he's their most reliable mid-sized defender.
Well, they've got plan B there, haven't they?
Yeah, and they can break glass in case of emergency. But I like, they're experimenting with their side. Like I said, Andrew McCoulter, I think, has realised where this situation's at, and he's got to make some changes.
So I am picking Melbourne.
So am I.
But I think West Coast. But when you've won 2 out of 28 quarters, it's very hard to mount a case. I would like to see West Coast win a couple of quarters this week.
I'd love to see them up at halftime and with the crowd in it. If they're up at halftime with the crowd in at 50-odd thousand, watch out.
Yep. Where are we? Sunday, 11:10 a.m. Sydney, $2.35. The GWS $1.60. Sydney has won 6 of its last 7 matches against GWS by an average of 28 points. The Giants lost the clearances by 22 last week to against the Bulldogs, their 3rd worst differential on record. The question is, do they stay with 4 key forwards, Stringer, Cadman, Hogan, Riccardi, against a smaller Sydney defence? A couple of interesting facts or stats to throw at you. The Orange Tsunami, does it still exist? D50 to forward 50, they're rated number 9 right now. So the transition game's not on song. Josh Kelly's ball use was number 2 last year, now ranked number 348 in the competition.
Wow,
his kicking has been off.
Yep.
I'm picking the Giants, by the way. It's at the SCG, so you've got to give Sydney a chance, but they're off at the moment. And we saw their half against the Gold Coast last week, which was good, but then just fell away. I think the fall away is too big. Giants have been challenged by their coach. Interesting to see Kingsley after last week's loss. Gave him a rap. Did you see the footage?
Yeah, I saw it was different.
Gave him the rap saying, look, and he's right, they're not getting beaten by big margins. They don't give it away, but nevertheless there's some they've got some challenges, GWS, at the moment. But I'm picking them. I think they bounce back.
Yeah, I'm picking the Giants. He would know too, Kingsley. And what I will say just quickly, I got a press release today about a joint media event between the two sides, and it said for the Derby. No, it's the Battle of the Bridge. Leave the Derby word alone.
Well,
it's the showdown in South Australia.
GWS don't like Battle of the Bridge, Mitch.
Well, they can
suggest that they've got no support on the other side.
Well, they can find another name for it. Leave the Derby alone. That's ours. Yes. It's not a derby either.
No,
go away.
No, okay.
Have your Everest. Leave me alone.
Okay. Oh, jeez.
Sydney Siders.
Geez, a bit of a side swipe at Peter Vlanders there, Mitch. Sunday, 1:20 p.m. MCG, Hawthorn $1.05, Richmond $10. I'm still laughing about that. The Hawks in their 100th year celebration game, Mitch, which Adam Uze says, well, it's payback time because Dusty Martin's 300th last year, Hawthorn won. So, look,
good luck.
Bolter back for Richmond. 2 big outs for Hawthorn. Carl Amon and Jack Scrimshaw. They are big outs for Hawthorn.
Yeah, with the concussions. It was sad to see them go down. They're both good players.
Yeah,
it hurts
so
their defence.
Clearly, I think Hawthorn win the game, but not going. I mean, I thought they were at half rat power against West Coast last week, to be honest.
I thought they were a bit showman-y at times.
Oh, Hollywood.
Yep.
The Hollywood Hawks were real last
They're
week.
drinking their own.
Well, they were last week.
And I don't like it. But you know what? When we said before that Fremantle don't have that ruthless edge, Sam Mitchell's got that ruthless edge, and I reckon he would know. Publicly, he wouldn't be saying much because I think that's a different platform for him. Privately, I reckon he's telling them we could have beaten West Coast by a lot more. Percentage is going to count. Do the damage this week. So Hawthorn, for me, 100-year celebration. He'll be pumped. He'll have all his mates there watching. He doesn't want to lose.
Some matches go. It's interesting. Richmond carrying just at the tail end of that premiership era they had. They've won 8 of their last 12 against Hawthorn since 2017. Lost both the fixtures last year by 48 and 63
And they were
points.
a much better side back then.
Yes. The Hawks at the G, love it. 8 out of 9 matches there they've won, with all wins in that time coming by at least 20 points. They do play the ground well.
Are you painting your face for this one on Sunday at home?
No, I don't paint my face.
Yeah,
that's for very rare occasions when we're playing grand finals. But no, I won't be.
You'll be sitting there face painted.
You picking the Hawks?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, Gabba, Sunday, 5:20 p.m. What a game to finish the round. We talk about Collingwood and Geelong. I don't know what is match of the round because this could well be it. The Brisbane Lions $1.53, Gold Coast $2.50. Better team defence from Brisbane last week. Gold Coast has won just 3 of the 20 matches it has played at the Gabba. Well, they're not the Lone Ranger. Most teams have lost at the Gabba. Good year this year, though. What I liked about them last week was Anderson and Rao not as prominent, and they still got the job done and had to come back from a deficit to do so. Rioli and Noble across half-back have been really good additions for them, and Bailey Humphrey's game. He's starting to emerge now as an elite
breakout
player.
game.
So, there's lots to like about Gold Coast. I'm going to pick Brisbane only because it's at the Gabba, but I can easily see the Suns winning this one. Q-Clash. Do we need to rename this, and what do we call it?
I don't know. I'm tipping Brisbane, but I don't care what it's called. This is the first one I've ever actually been interested in. For the first time ever, I'm going to sit
I was
out.
interested in the first one.
Yeah, I was too
Just to see
until about
what
quarter
happened.
time, and I
Then
think
I
it was
lost
a blowout.
interest. Now I'm really. This is going to be a good game.
Gold Coast are a top 4 team. What they did to Sydney last week was incredible. The Gold Coast team of the past would have rolled over and fallen away and lost by 50, 80 points. The turn that around is incredible. So, look, wouldn't surprise me if the Suns won. I'm tipping the Lions just because it's at the Gabba. Tell you what, if it was at their home ground, though, people's first stadium, whatever they call it, I'd be tipping the Suns. I love the way they're going about it. And, but Brisbane for
I
me.
want to play more during the day.
I tell you what.
Not surprisingly, because of the conditions up there. Ben King and Harris Andrews. So Ben King's had a great season.
Yeah.
And he's kicking goal accuracy of 69.7% this season, right? Which is the best of his career. But he'll know what it's about this week.
He will. It'll be a big game for someone like Jed Walter to come out there and have a big game. The Bailey Humphrey we saw last week obviously emerge. And then at the other end, well, not at the other end, but the other side, I tell you what, don't do what St Kilda did. Don't let Lockie Neal run around by himself too much because he'll hurt
the
you.
Brownlow?
Yes.
I think Nick Dacos probably is, but I think Neil and Andrew Brayshaw are right up there.
Yeah, 100%. Neal is just a modern-day marvel.
He is indeed. Favourite time of the week, Mitch, the
I love this
Thirsty
one.
Camel mailbag. This week we'll be giving away a $50 digital voucher thanks to Thirsty Camel. Get your questions in for next week too. TheWestSport at wanews.com.au. Please include your mobile number at the bottom of your email as we will send you a digital voucher if you are a weekly winner. Mitch.
Yes, let's send your questions in, guys. We want lots
This
of
one
really
from
good
Clary
questions.
from Inglewood. What did you make of North Melbourne's ban on cane corns? Can you recall anything like this happen in the past? What's your take on the ban?
My take is it's ridiculous.
I couldn't
I
agree with
just
you
think
more.
to yourself, North Melbourne, concentrate on winning games of football and not who's saying what about you out there. I didn't actually think what Corn said was actually that bad, Clary.
But he referred to them as sheezies. He was basically talking about Harry Sheezel getting cheap kicks in the back line. The thing is, David King pretty much said the same thing a few weeks earlier on Fox. So
It's a bit soft for me if I'm North Melbourne. It's not targeted by him. You've been poor. You've won barely any games over the last few years. And you know what? Banning someone from your rooms, concentrate on what you've actually got to concentrate on and get a bit of footy. And you know what I would have loved to have seen? I'd love to see North Melbourne go, Kane, come in. We'll put Alistair Clarkson out with you. And have Alistair actually be able to say something back.
well, he's got the experience to do so, mate. So,
Or, if Jai Simpkin's the captain, if he's had a go at Jai Simpkin, tell Jai to go and do an interview with him. Don't hide away from these things. No, I think it's ridiculous. And all you're doing...
who was the winner?
No,
Kane Corns.
Well, yeah, Kane wins. And guess
Kane
what?
Corns would have loved it.
And now we're all going to watch tonight's game, to see what's going on and how it's going to be reacted to. But just concentrate on playing football.
So, by the way, the fixturing from round 16 onwards, they're all floating fixtures. The AFL's got to factor that in. What chances do you reckon? I mean, North's form's not been great, but what chances of North getting any marquee fixtures on the back of that sort of decision? It will come into it.
Well, North will get the either the 11 o'clock Sunday morning game, the 2 p.m. Saturday slot, and West Coast will get the 3:10 Sunday slot.
And just to answer the second part of that, can you recall anything like North Melbourne's got a bit of form in this area? And I remember in the 1990s when they were all powerful, coached by Dennis Pagan, they'd hand them out consistently to members of the media. Remember a guy who worked for The Age in Melbourne named Charles Happel was banned for a couple of years, and by Dennis Pagan. And in the end, he just had enough. And Dennis Pagan was out in the middle of Arden Street one day with a group of school children, and he walked out and he said, "Dennis, can we just end this? Like, it's been a couple of years. Just, come on." And Dennis Pagan looked at the kids and he said, "Boys and girls, welcome Charles Happel back to the North Melbourne Football Club." But, I mean, mate, I've been banned by the Eagles at one point. Trevor Nisbet used to hand them out. I was banned by them in the early 90s for something I thought was ridiculously, shallow. But anyway.
I thought about wearing those Kevlar vests for a few times at Eagles in the last few years.
But, I mean, this is just, it's like it what's the point of doing this?
You're concentrating on the wrong things. You're putting does Viney really need to spend time explaining to the media why they've banned Kane Corns when they're just deplorable on the field?
Yeah, I would have thought.
Is this what they need to be spending their energy on?
Now, Ben from Malaga writes, assuming you don't believe West Coast have any players who fit the bill, which Fremantle players are in the All-Australian frame right now? Mitch, your take?
Well, the two midfielders straight away, Caleb Sarong and Andy Brayshaw.
Yeah, Andy Brayshaw and Callum. I think Andy's be a lock at the moment.
Luke Jackson was in the mark before he got injured for the ruck position. I don't know if he was
got
locked,
a fair bit of the season to catch up.
But I thought he was around the mark. You go up forward, Josh Tracy obviously is around the mark. And I'm a big rap for Alex Pearce. I think he's a quiet achiever down there. I think when you don't notice your fullback, sometimes when your fullback's playing their best footy, and I reckon sometimes we don't notice Alex Pearce.
Sneaky chance. I reckon Josh Tracy would be in there right now for his starts of the year. So, and great column from Danny Laidley too, describing Andy Brayshaw as an elite AFL punisher. As the number one gut-wrenching two-way runner in the competition. I don't think we can disagree with that. So I think, they very much would have a couple of players in the frame. Hey, Quarters, this one from Andrew from Leeming, a regular. Tonight's match is a real mockbuster. It is more suited to a Sunday evening time slot where the viewer can sit on their couch and enjoy their marshmallows, peptides and hot chocolate.
Peptides?
Oh, I like that. Obviously, Essendon reference there. And referring back to the marshmallow game, North Melbourne Essendon many years ago with Kevin Sheedy. Who else? His input. That started their fierce rivalry. It does seem a bit flat. But you know what? Given where they're at, might be the game of the round. You just don't know.
Well, I tell you what, if you're going to concentrate on Kane Corns, I'd be concentrating on beating Essendon this week. Get out there and perform. You put the pressure on yourself now.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm giving this week's Thirsty Camel voucher to Joe, who mailed in on Tuesday. And Joe took me to task, Mitch, for not having Jordan Clark in my team of the week. While it's a pretty hard team to pick, I took it on board, Joe. And I concede you're probably right, and you are this week's winner. Well done to you. We have been brought to you by TabTouch. Got the touch? Download the TabTouch app today. What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelponline.org.au. Remember, you can watch or listen to this podcast on YouTube Music. Leave us a rating and a review, and don't forget to follow this podcast so you don't miss an episode. Mitch, thank you again for your time.
Thanks always, Quarters. Let's have a good weekend of footy.
Yeah, indeed.